Alright guys, so today we are going to do an install on FIberon Brio Rhythm railing section. This is a little bit different than the other ones like the Countryside, where it's ordered a little bit differently. So first I'm going to talk about the different systems you have to order. It's a little bit more a la carte. You're going to have to order your post sleeves separate, your cap and skirt differently, and your railing kit comes in this line kit. We're using an 8-footer. There's also a 6-foot, and this is just your top and bottom with the rail components, like the hardware. And you also have to order your baluster separately. So you have your baluster kit, and this includes the balusters. When you use the balusters for the Brio Rhythm, they're proprietary to the Brio Rhythm system. And I'll show you a Countryside baluster. So here's one for Countryside. Their texture and color is really close. You can probably get it off without anyone noticing, but it's a different system. So the first thing is on Countryside, it's a solid unit. And so when you're installing it, you're screwing in to lock it in tight. The Brio system is hollow because you have the pre-done holes that these plug into. And it's also, so square on that end, noticeably longer, and it's just the layout of the system. So if you were to order the railing section and you had leftover Countryside balusters, they would not be compatible. You would not end up with a railing as intended. Okay, so I've opened up our 8-foot line kit, and I'm going to show you what contains what. So you have your top rail, which again you'll see the pre-done holes. They have a nice protective film on it, keeps it safe. Highly recommend leaving this on to the end of the project so you're not scratching it while you're sliding around in your saw. And the bottom rail, this is where all the components are, and they're stuffed inside the rail. So see, we're going to have a hardware kit. Two foot blocks in your directions. In our hardware kit, you're going to have multiple brackets, the screws, and the other two brackets. We're ready to start installation now that we know we have all our parts we need. First thing is you just slide over your composite sleeves over your 4x4s. Then you put your skirts on. That's done nice and easy. Next step is you're going to have to cut your railing. So the instructions will have you cut both railings at the same time using the same measurements. My pro tip would say do the bottom one first and then cut your second one later, because you never can trust pressure treated posts to, like, you might install them one day, they're perfectly square, next day they dry out and they warp. So we're going to do the bottom first, get that installed, and then measure up top to make sure we got nice tight seams. So these 8-foot sections we know are exactly 92 inches. Next, we're going to measure between these two gaps, and we know from measuring already they're 85 and 5/8. So you start off with 92 minus the length here, which is 85 and 5/8, and the number that's left over is 8 inches or something like that. You're then going to divide that number by 2 and cut that number off of each side. And the reason why you do this process is because if you were to just take the cut from one side, then your balusters are going to end up being unequal, and it's going to not look very good. So this is the way to ensure that your balusters are centered. Okay, so we got our bottom rail cut, make sure it's the right length. Now we're ready to add some of the other parts of the system rolling. So the first thing is you find the 1/3 points of your railing, because we're doing 8-foot where you're going to need 2-foot blocks. If you're doing a 6-foot, you just need 1. 6-foot, you'd find the middle. 8-foot, you got to find your 1/3 points. So we got that. You use like a PVC glue, PVC cement. Doesn't need too fancy. Whatever works. And you glue the foot block to here. And a fun, something I noticed, these are made out of the Countryside balusters that I showed earlier. So if for some reason you lose your foot blocks, or you got to get crazy and make a custom height, you can use the Countryside balusters to get any extra as foot blocks. So we got that done. Next, you're going to install the brackets. So the brackets are these plastic L pieces. The 3 holes go into the railing. The 2 holes will go up onto the post sleeve. So we'll install this one. A little trick I learned from our specialist, Joe Dent, is we put up a scrap piece or whatever, get it nice and square to make sure it's flush on the end. We get it centered, and we pre-drill. So you pre-drill one, there's 3 holes, and I'll show you why. If you were to go and pre-drill all 3 of these, it's gonna be really hard to hold it and be consistent. It might come out a little awkward. So I'll switch to our T20 bit drill, and we'll tack this guy in. Cool. Stick that up, make sure it's flush again. Okay, good. Now I can go and pre-drill the other 2, and it's gonna hold it for me. Perfect. So then you do the other side, and when you go to set it, your foot block's gonna set your height. We're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so we got our brackets screwed on to the bottom rail. We got our foot blocks on. So now we're gonna attach the bottom rail to the post sleeves. So get it nice and centered, feel comfortable. We'll get our pre-drill bit, and we'll just use the actual bracket as a pre-drill guide. Okay, should be good. And then we're gonna go switch it up. We're gonna use these longer screws because we actually gotta go through the post sleeve and then into the 4x4 post. It's a T20 bit. Sucks it in nice. No gap. I'm liking the way it looks. All right, so we got our bottom rail installed. Now it's time to move on to the top rail. So we're gonna install the brackets, very similar to how we did the bottom rail, but what you'll notice is that the bottom rail and the top rail are actually the same piece of material, they're interchangeable. Just when you install the bottom rail, you want the holes up. When you do the top rail, you want the holes down. So it's gonna look the same, it's just you're just going to have the holes on this side when you do it. And we'll just install it very similar. We're gonna pre-drill. Come back here. Get that squared up. Be our square. Tap. Tap. Clean out that. Perfect. We'll do it to the other side, and we'll get this top rail installed. Okay, so we got our top rail ready to go. We got the brackets mounted and screwed in. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna install the balusters, and once we have the balusters installed, do the top rail. So again, we're just gonna take the balusters, and we're going to just put them in the pre-done holes, and they slide in. Some of them are a little bit snug, no problem, they go in. No need to fasten them, they'll just kind of pressure fit once you get the top rail on there. Just like that. And then we grab our top rail that we already have our brackets on. And that is when we start mounting them. So it helps if you have 2 people and you just kind of walk it in each one, and you just go down the line. Okay, so we got our top rail on, we got the balusters all aligned, top rail's level. Now we're ready to fasten it to the post. So again, we're going to get our pre-drill bit, use the actual bracket as a guide, put a hole in it, switch our bit. You're going with the longer screws this time, the T20s. Got to go into that post material. Yep, get it nice and snug. And then you do the other ones. Okay, so we got our top rail screwed in. We got our plastic wrap off. Really the final touch is just to put on the caps. It's recommended to use an outdoor like adhesive. Holds it on tight, but once you put it on, you'll never be able to get it off again. Get some static electricity off of there. Yeah, so there's our rail. That's the Brio Rhythm rail. And what I really like about this railing is it has the highly desired flat top rail. In the industry, we call it your cocktail rail, your party rail, your beer rail, whatever. It's got a nice 3.5-inch wide top part that's flat, so you can put, again, you can put like a can of soda, a little plate for food. It's great for entertaining. It's a really good contemporary look. And in what's available in the market, this profile rail is usually a really, really top price point, but this comes in at a lot more affordable. And installation is quick and easy. So this is a great choice if you have an outdoor living space where you want to do a lot of entertaining.